Greetings and salutations, young true believers. So today I'm going to talk to you about Arthur Danto and his views on what is and what isn't art. So Danto, you'll recall, you'll remember this from the Crash Course in Philosophy video. He has that famous example of, for whatever reason, in the Crash Course video, it's like 6 or 7 red painted canvases. In the actual example that he uses in the article, it's 9. But the point is, right, one is a Soviet political statement. The other one is, what happened after Moses parted the Red Sea. One was a primer for a canvas that was going to be repainted later, et cetera, right? And so Danto believes that the task of philosophy is still to get at the essences of things, right? This notion of essence, you should know this about philosophy in general. Talk of essences has fallen out of favor considerably in the last 50, 60 years. Philosophy, like anything, is kind of a trendy discipline. It's just that in philosophy, trends tend to hang around for like a century and then go away. But it's fashionable these days to rip on the notion of essences as antiquated and medieval, and nobody believes that stuff anymore. But Danto definitely believes that art has an essence. That's what he's after, right? And he thinks philosophy is, to a certain extent, the business of fleshing out what an essence is. And so, for Danto, what you do when you try to discern what the difference is, what the essence of a thing is, you contrast it with something that's really similar to it, and you try to figure out what the difference is, and whatever the difference is, that's the essence, right? So for Danto, right, his prime example of this, you saw this in the reading. He went to the Stable Gallery in New York City, and Andy Warhol had his Brillo box exhibit there, right? He had painted a bunch of Brillo boxes, just plain plywood boxes, and he painted them up to look like Brillo boxes, right? So Johnson then asked, well, what's the difference between Warhol's and just ordinary boxes of Brillo pads that you would have gotten in the store in '64, right? There's got to be a difference. So the difference on Danto's view is not anything that your senses can flesh out. So in other words, what he's doing right now is he's arguing against Clive Bell. It's not significant form, right? That's not what makes an artwork an artwork. At least not a painting, right? It isn't that, right? Quote, objects are art, not because of some intrinsic perceptual quality they possess, but by being connected to the theoretical atmosphere of the art world. It is ultimately a theory of art that takes Warhol's Brillo boxes up into the world of art and keeps them from collapsing into mere things. So, a word about the art world. The art world, again, Danto was the person who coined this phrase. It's really funny when you think about it, because I was using this phrase long before I knew who Arthur Danto was. It's the power of philosophy again, right? But the art world is the collection of art collectors, dealers, critics, and artists, and occasionally people like Danto. Danto was also an artist himself, in addition to being a philosopher of art. But you take them collectively, and that's the art world, right? And there are 2 necessary conditions. Now, necessary and sufficient conditions, if you take a critical thinking class, right, these are the conditions that have to be met for something to be achieved, right? A necessary condition has to be present in order to get a desired effect, but its mere presence alone doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the effect. A sufficient condition, by contrast, is one that if that condition's present, you're getting the desired effect. So, to give you an example, if you got 100% humidity, you're going to have rain, right? So, what Danto does is he identifies 2 necessary conditions that any purported artwork has to satisfy, right? And this is his notion of embodied meaning, right? Something is art only if it is about something, and only if it embodies or articulates whatever it is about in a suitable form. So, for example, Warhol's Brillo boxes. There may be 1,000 interpretations of this particular work, the Brillo boxes, but it's safe to say that, among other things, the work is about the commodification of art. That gives the work a meaning, right? Danto is very insistent on this point. If you're going to have a work of art, it helps the patron of the arts, right? If you have a placard or if you have a pamphlet that's going to explain the history of the work and the significance of the work. The history of art, the philosophy of art really matters, right? Without it, the patron of the arts is at a loss sometimes to understand what the artist is intending and why they should care about this particular work, right? So, given this conception of art, it seems obvious that what the task of the art critic should be is namely to find out what a work is about and then explain how the stylistic choice of the artist embody the meaning of that work, right? Why did the artist choose to render it thusly and not in some other way, right? If you do that, then you have embodied meaning. Now, this is also in stark contradiction to someone like Wittgenstein, who famously argued that there are no essences, right? There are only what he calls family resemblances. And his famous example was a game, right? Dodgeball is a game, but so is solitaire. What do they have in common? Well, one uses a ball, one doesn't. Well, that's out. What else do they have in common? Well, they're for amusement. Are all games for amusement, though, right? Russian roulette, for example, might be classified as a game. For those of you who aren't familiar with Russian roulette, I was going to tell you to Google it, but I guess I'll just tell you what it is. So Russian roulette is a game where you take a revolver and you put one bullet in the chamber, you spin it so you don't know what chamber the bullet's in, right? You stick it to your head, click, you pass it to the next person, they take the cylinder out, spin it, and the game continues until somebody shoots them in the head, right? Shoots themselves in the head. So, is it a game? Well, it's considered a game, right? So maybe not all games are fun, right? So Wittgenstein takes this to be, well, okay, there can't be an essence. He says there are family resemblances, which I've always balked at this explanation because it seems to me if there's a family resemblance deep down, there's got to be an essence. So anyway, be sure to include your thoughts, and I will check on you tomorrow.